Hello, everybody. My name is Nick, also known as my online pseudonym, the Pisces Prince. I'm a micro podcaster making analysis or like my own amateur analysis on like my favorite movies, TVs, film, talking about pop culture, whatever is on my mind. And I usually just like get right on into the episode, and I just want to like introduce myself before we get into the episode. Also, to remind you guys to just simply search the podcast Pisces Prince with Nick Marshall on Spotify, anywhere you stream podcasts, and to give the video a like and subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube, and just give it a rating and just tell me what you think. And I hope everyone's day is going pretty well. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. Let me start out with a little bit of an anecdote, a little story. Okay, it's 2014. I'm in second grade, and one morning, I wake up incredibly sick. So I had to stay home that day. And I did nothing but just lay in bed and watch shows, and I was 8 years old at the time. Around this time, a show called Paw Patrol came up, and that was the first time I ever saw the show. And I got into Paw Patrol, and I liked the show very much. Something about like watching talking dogs interests my 8-year-old brain. And what made the show even more fun in particular is there were two characters, Chase and Sky. And Chase had a crush on Sky, and it was more noticeable to fans. And this was the first time I've actually ever shipped two characters, or even knew what shipping was. So I was introduced to shipping culture. So I spent the last 10 years going in and out of fandoms, getting interested into shows, and I just wasn't immune to watching a show, getting involved in a fandom, and shipping two characters that I thought would work together. And I've also been on the other side where I didn't jump on the shipping train and defended ships or like potential like ships that I didn't really think that wasn't really like that. But over the years, there are many ships that I've seen. Some that were so obvious that they're going to end up together. Some that just didn't make sense. Some that really shouldn't really have happened. But there is this one shipping trope that is very interesting to me. And it got into I actually and I didn't really know how much this shipping trope actually irked my mind, interests me to the point where I need to talk about this. This needs to be discussed. And people who are more into fandoms and shipping culture would understand what I'm going to be like trying to articulate right here. I'm talking about the ships that are not ended in two characters getting together. I'm talking about ships that are more debatable. Ships that are more like heavy and like ambiguous. They're more in the more up for interpretation. Ships that work either way, to so speak. Shipping two characters who one side thinks that they're a romantic couple, and another side they're so intimate that no, they're just friends. Why are you trying to project? And it's a very interesting like trope that I've been seeing over the years. And it's very interesting how there's so much debate when a ship works both ways. So the huge topic I want to talk about is like ships that work both ways. So I looked it up. And when a ship works both ways, like when it works as both a romantic relationship and a platonic relationship, it means, according to the overview I looked up on Google, the dynamic between two characters is compelling enough for fans to enjoy them as a couple, but also as close friends, with a deep, supportive bond, allowing for interpretation of their relationship without necessarily needing a romantic element. This is something that a lot of writers in literature and in TV and film have done. It's not really like a new writing style. And it says here that the characters have a strong bond with deep understanding, trust, mutual respect, which can be the foundation for either romantic and platonic relationships. And then character development. The characters' personalities and individual journeys allow for nuanced portrayals of their relationship, where their closeness can be interpreted in different ways depending on the fan's preference. And then subtle hints and the ambiguity of it. Sometimes the media may intentionally leave room for interpretation, presenting scenes that could be read as romantic or platonic, depending on the viewer's perspective. Again, I mean, to me, like, it's a very interesting writing style, and the whole up for interpretation thing is very well thought out to an extent. And it's actually a good thing that these types of ships exist, because they require us to analyze and read into scenes and media, and just simply, or any art form in general, that they come from, and see it in a more different way. It allows us to kind of like put on our reading glasses and also like truly like use our like own like intelligence to try to read more into it. But with all good things, there are also like bad things that come with it. And I feel like that like that like a whole up for interpretation thing, sometimes it gets a little annoying. Why? Well, the whole up for interpretation argument for character pairings becomes annoying because it seems like the writers are trying to manipulate the audience to become more interested in their show or movie or book. And writers kind of like know their characters. They know how they're setting scenes up, and sometimes they may not know, but they do know that the relationships between the characters need to be like literal. And I feel like up for interpretation is kind of like reserved for more like music sometimes, or paintings, other art forms. Sometimes when you're writing relationships between characters, it has to be literal so that the audience can know what the dynamic between the two characters is, so that they can understand how each character relates to the other. So when you're kind of like writing it as one way and the audience picks up on it, like, you know that it's like what you're writing between these characters is inherently romantic, but you're going around saying, well, it's up for interpretation. No, it's up for interpretation. Let's just like leave it up for interpretation. It's kind of like condescending, it's also gaslighting, but I'm seeing that it mostly falls under same-sex pairings. Not straight pairings, but same-sex pairings when it's up for interpretation. It's usually between same-sex pairings, whether they're friends or something more. It's all up for interpretation. Now we have to put our thinking caps on. Now we have to prove the debaters on Reddit or Twitter wrong, because it's so obvious that we believe that these two characters are in love with each other. And the fact that they were also written to be close friends makes the like possibility of their romantic relationship even more stronger, because like Strong romantic relationships are built on a foundation of good friendship, which makes it even more better, which proves our point even more. And there are many characters that have been hinted to be more than friends. There's another word for those types of situations. It's queerbaiting. We love that word, right? It's queerbaiting. And this is a huge case for it because in media, often it's marketed to get queer audience invested while trying not to upset the homophobes who fund the networks. Like, let's say Disney creates another first gay character, or Cartoon Network like makes alien lesbians Steven Universe, or Adventure Time like waiting a whole like 8 years before we get to see like Princess Bubblegum and Marceline like like kiss. I mean, Bubbling is not like queerbaiting, but like networks or like media is very hesitant on like providing queer representation in film because of the homophobes who fund the networks, or like the big heads who fund the networks, homophobic audiences, not trying to upset the conservatives, all that. So in the end, like they do create like these pairings and like leave it up for interpretation, so they won't upset the viewers who are so heavily opposed to queer representation. Two ships that come to mind that do fall under both it's up for interpretation and the queer banning like argument is one, Becca and Chloe and Pitch Perfect, and recently Byler, because there has been like some like speculation if Will Byers and Mike Wheeler will get together in season 5 of Stranger Things. And there have been many videos. I've recently like watched a video on YouTube of a lawyer like debating that Byler is going to happen, making up good points, dissecting scenes. These these ships have built up a lot of fans, a lot of evidence to back up their claims. That's more than up for interpretation. It's clear fact that they were literally written to be romantic, but got little results. And then recently, a few months ago, as I was like starting to write this little amateur audio essay episode for the podcast, I come across 3 ships I've thought about that fit these key arguments: the queerbaiting argument, the actual representation you get, and when it actually does like work both ways. So the first ship that comes to mind is Neil Perry and Todd Anderson from Dead Poets Society. These two kind of fit the first argument that I'm making of queerbaiting and the debate that it's up for interpretation. So Dead Poets Society was a film that came out in 1989 that starred Robin Williams as a teacher at an all-boys Catholic school in Vermont and taught them poetry. He teaches his students through unorthodox methods to think more independently and to seize the day. Carpe diem, a Latin term to be more specific, in a very traditional 1950s society. Neil Perry, being one of the main characters of the movie, he is the most affected by Mr. Keen's teachings and realizes his dreams of being an actor. And we as the audience learn earlier on from his difficult relationship from his controlling father, wants him to become a doctor, and dismisses anything that Neil wants to do for himself. And new generations, my generation, and then probably generations in the past, have kind of like theorized that his dream of being an actor is a metaphor for him being gay, or simply not being straight, because again, let's not, he might not just simply be not straight, but to me, Neil Perry is gay, in my opinion. I cannot see him, he gives a very 100% gay vibe But anyway, I feel like this can be seen with him becoming more happy and relaxed when he pursues his dream by auditioning for the play at Henley Hall, A Midsummer Night's Dream, as a way of realizing he's queer and becoming more comfortable with his sexuality, only for his father to just come in, ruin his happy moments, and say, "You cannot do the play." But Neil refuses in the end and does the play anyway. His father shows up towards the end, brings him back, a huge argument breaks out, and this particular scene is very queer coded. It's almost like a father realizing more and more that his son is gay and he doesn't really like it. The whole acting thing, I feel like, in my opinion, and I'm gonna be making lots of episodes that are revolved around Dead Poet Society because it's becoming more and more of my hyper fixation. It's becoming more of my personality. But I'm gonna continue saying this. This scene is more queer coded than we're expecting. This is not about acting. It's not. Neil's dad has a feeling that Neil's gay. It's like this unspoken thing. I feel like he found out before the events of the movie. And just now, in the beginning, he's been cracking down the whip more and more, forcing his dreams of Neil becoming a doctor more onto him. The leash becoming more tighter, more firmer, and making Neil feel more trapped in general. This cannot be because he wants to be an actor. This is because he knows that Neil is different. And anything that gives him a little bit of a reminder that Neil is different, that Neil is gay, and the fact that being an actor in the 50s, again, it's very traditional. And to be more specific, it's 1959. And Stonewall didn't happen until 1969. So homosexuality was just so taboo. It wasn't even brought up in polite conversations. So Neil's dad didn't even mention the word at all. It didn't really need to be said. I feel like he knew. So let me just crack down the whip so he can just get in line and be the son that I wanted him to be, because he's a tool, a pawn in my own plans. I have his life planned out. We're not gonna let him ruin his life. Him being an actor, no, that's just sissy stuff. That was the whole attitude with being an actor in the 50s. Being an actor was seen as more flamboyant, even though in the 50s we were getting more of the beefcake phase of the Rock Hudsons and the Marlon Brandos, the James Deans. Those were all gay men. Well, Marlon was pansexual, but anyway. We were getting a more hyper masculinity in film, but still acting in the 50s and earlier on was seen as more floofy and flamboyant stuff, and boys shouldn't do that, no. So it wasn't really all about the acting. It was just simply hitting the nail on the head that Neil was gay. And when Neil shot back up and said, "I got to tell you what I feel," it almost seemed like he was about to come out too. That hesitance, the shakiness, him backing out, and just said nothing. And you can just see his soul crush, and you can almost cry. You just feel his pain so much. And that led to his suicide because of his father's dismissal of his dreams of being an actor, and possibly his father's homophobia too. And also his father's toxic masculinity too. The fact that Neil wasn't really gonna fill his shoes at all. He has to be his own person, and he felt like he just couldn't really live anymore. So after his death, everyone was devastated. But one person was more devastated than all the rest. That brings in Todd Anderson, the second main character. He's a very shy boy. He's a new student at Welton, whom his older brother Jeffrey also went. And his relationship with his parents is complicated because we get the sense that he's completely in the shadow of his older brother and is constantly reminded of it in the movie and even in some fan fiction writings that kind of like explore more of their relationship. Even though like it's not particularly canon. One thing that is very consistent is the fact that Todd's parents often neglect Todd, and Jeffrey is the star son. That is the most consistent thing. And they can either make Jeffrey antagonistic or very supportive. I think that is the most like canonical thing in there, that Todd's parents are neglectful, but Jeffrey is very supportive. But anyway, his relationship to Neil helped him grow more confidence in the end when he stood up for Mr. Keating. When Neil died, Todd was more upset than the rest of the poets, which makes it more evident that the two have most likely harbored romantic feelings for each other, was the fact that they only known each other for 4 months, and Todd had a literal emotional breakdown in the snow when Charlie, who knew Neil like longer and was like a brother to Neil, like he was equally as devastated. So both of them were like equally going through it, but it's obvious that Todd was like definitely like going through it the most and was just as devastated. Like it was the type of reaction when you find out that the love of your life is never coming back. Todd is mostly like throughout the movie is compared to a queer poet, Walt Whitman, and even though like Todd's sexuality is not really confirmed either, I've looked it up many times to see like, okay, was it like really written as like a romantic pairing? And then like one like quote that I've like seen, like it was from Instagram, like talking like, hold on, let me pull it up, because it explains like the whole like the dynamic or like the whole like intent of Dead Poets Society and like its portrayal of Neil and Todd. It says here that Dead Poets Society is not explicitly a queer film, but it does have notable subtext and signs of attraction between the characters Neil and Todd. Their closeness drives them to pursue their passions, and their relationship can be seen as a doomed first love. Neil encourages Todd's writing, and Todd admires Neil's pursuit of acting. Todd's sexual orientation is never confirmed in the film, though he is frequently compared to Walt Whitman, a very famous queer poet, hinting at Todd's own queer identity. It's very like evident that Todd is constantly compared to Walt Whitman, because Todd, like, you don't really get the vibe that Todd is straight either. When you look at Dead Poets Society through a queer lens, it makes more sense. It gives more depth to it, because you see Mr. Keating try to like inspire the boys to be more individualistic, to be more proud and like confident in themselves, and have it all blow up in his face, go so terribly, is very like heartbreaking in the end. But when you see Todd finally like realize that he has a voice, because he said that one line that I really relate to was when he said to Neil, "You say things and people listen, and I'm just not like that." What Todd is like feeling in the moment is like a continuing self-fulfilling prophecy, is because he feels so like shadowed by Jeffrey. He's convinced himself that he doesn't have a voice. What he has to say is not important, when that's not the case. Todd has just as much to say as the next person, and he has a very strong voice. And you see that in the end when Todd speaks, people listen. And in the end, like, Neil would be very proud of Todd, because I feel I believe, in the end, that Neil and Todd are best friends. It's obvious that they're best friends, but they're also are very in love. They're boyfriends. They make sense. And I when I think about these two, I actually get so emotional. I cry because there's just not a lot of like ship I don't see a lot of pairings in media and like in literature that make so much sense because Neil and Todd make sense. They really do. And when I read like the fan fictions of them, like it's still them in whatever alternate reality universe. What they're saying to each other, their care, it's still there. It's like I'm watching the movie again. Whether it's in the movie, canonically, or like the fan fiction, you're not really gonna be super disappointed in the betrayals because some fans know these characters so well and they keep it so close to their hearts that they write it so good that it's like you don't feel like you're like reading different people because it's Neil and Todd and it just feels like meant to be. And the actors even like agree too. Well, we don't know that much from Ethan and Robert, but in particular, the actor who played Charlie, Gail Hansen, tweeted a while back on September 11th, 2020. When someone asks, "Do you ship Todd with Neil?" Gail says, looking back, yes. Charlie's has no confirmation if it was ever consummated. Some things Neil took with him, and Todd never spoke about it, which is pretty accurate because, again, when we take it into more account that homosexuality was very taboo and it wasn't really talked about. Of course, Todd would never outwardly like say the true nature of his relationship with Neil because their relationship is their relationship. No one really knows the true details except them. And also, we need to ask the actors Ethan Hawke and Robert Sean Leonard, what do they think about this like relationship? Do they also ship them? I really want to know. But they do fall under they do kind of like fall under the queer baiting argument because like it's like the possibility of them being together, but you just don't really get that much. And I feel like we need more scenes from them. That's my argument. That's like the first argument. The second ship that I felt was working either way, that falls under like it worked as either portrayal, was Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. These two are my favorite ship pair in the DCU like universe. So if you don't know who these characters are, Harley Quinzel was a doctor at Arkham Asylum where she treated the Joker in Batman the Animated Series and was manipulated into this insanity and becoming obsessed with her quote-unquote Puddin and was living life to the fullest as his girlfriend and partner in crime. She made her first appearance in the legendary TV series Batman the Animated Series, where was meant to be like a female like henchman for the Joker in the episode Joker's Favor, but she quickly became a fan favorite and the showrunners kept her around. Over the years, the depictions of her relationship with the Joker bordered on toxic or, quote, mad love in their case. At one point, the writers teamed her up with Poison Ivy, who quickly became her best friend and partner in crime, which also leads to Poison Ivy. She's sort of a villain, but like an eco-terrorist, which makes more sense in her brand. She was a patient at Arkham Asylum where she met Harley Quinn and became friends in the Harley Quinn show. According to there are many different ways of how she and Harley met. In the animated series, they met when Ivy was robbing a museum and they left together and she said, "This can be the start of a beautiful friendship," and it is. Anyway, Ivy came from an abusive household. This is coming from the Harley Quinn show in 2019. She came from an abusive household and has a terrible relationship with her father. In the animated series, her relationship with Harley is portrayed as a simple best friend story, with her healing Harley to find her self-confidence after being kicked out by the Joker because of her incompetence. We're talking about the episode Harley and Ivy in the Batman animated series. Ivy works as a nice balanced Harley's crazy with her level-headedness and genuine care and advice, especially when it comes to the Joker. And in most media, they are portrayed as best friends. In fact, that's how like it was originally like written, like they were just written as best friends. But over the years, they have been portrayed as girlfriends in some alternate universes in the DC comics. Also, people who have eyes saw that Ivan and Harley were more of a better romantic pairing than Harley's on and off typically abusive relationship with the Joker. And in the DC comics, they do kiss a fair bit in canon comics. But that's actually like the best part about DC comics. They have many alternate universes, so you can explore many ships. And that's why I'm a true DC fan geek at heart. I never got into Marvel. I don't really get it that much. I just love DC comics. Anyway, the pair work well as both best friends and girlfriends because that's what they are. Especially in the HBO Max series Harley Quinn, their friendship still stands when you first watch the show. They are best friends exactly like they've always been, but they become more than friends because their relationship was built on a strong friendship that happened to grow into something more. In either portrayal of the two, where they are just friends or lovers, the fans still enjoy Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy's dynamic, which is just another form of good writing. On June 12th in 2015, when someone tweeted, "Are Harley and Ivy a couple?" to DC, they said yes, they are girlfriends without the jealousy of monogamy, and then followed up with the tweet, "We love that Harley and Ivy are the best friends ever." At the end of the day, I feel like it is a very simple I do like the ambiguity sometimes, but I just simply I just like shipping pairings to be very literal sometimes. Sometimes I don't really need the extra mind work, the homework. It feels like a homework assignment to constantly analyze scenes to see if we're getting if these two are becoming a couple, specifically with same-sex pairings. But anyway, the last and final one that I the last ship I want to talk about is Wednesday Addams and Enid Sinclair in the Netflix show Wednesday. So the two's friendship starts sort of it's kind of a slow burn friendship, with them starting off on the wrong foot to Wednesday finally hugging her in the final episode. I guess when you first meet, when you see Wednesday and Enid, it's a very opposites attract. There's a reason why, people ship them to to an extent. I don't really ship them that much. I think I just like them as best friends, but it can be again, I said, it can be a good sign of writing when two characters, when you can see them either way as platonic best friends or romantic partners. One thing being one thing being clear, these two characters care about each other very much. That is even though it can be annoying, that's the one thing that's consistent in this. Writing two characters who care for each other in either sense. So in the show, Wednesday also was happening to be in a Twilight-themed love triangle with the other two male characters, Xavier Thorpe and Tyler Galpin. The love triangle didn't really sit well with the fans of the Addams family because Wednesday has a very obvious disdain for romance, and some people say Wednesday is asexual or a romantic. And also I think people said that she's autistic. That's kind of a stretch, but I just feel Wednesday, I agree with the fact that Wednesday has a very obvious disdain for romance. And also, I never really watched the Addams Family. I never watched any Addams Family content before I watched the show Wednesday when it came out. So I came into it with new with a clear blank slate. But I knew I knew that Jenna Ortega was gonna do amazing in the show. She did amazing, you guys. Jenna Ortega. It's always the Disney kids that do that just they just show up in acting roles. But Jenna Ortega, Zendaya, Cameron Boyce. I'm trying to think of like other like former Disney Channel stars that broke free like of the Disney like, but like these Dove Cameron, like they are serious like Hollywood like actors or singers. Dove Cameron's a singer, but she is a good actress too. It's always the Disney kids that really do show up and prove to everybody that they can act very well. They're the ones who are underestimated. Because they acted in cheesy shows, people think, oh, they just can't act at all. But Jenna proved so many of the naysayers wrong, and she delivered, and she perfected, she just made Wednesday her own. And it's like she portrayed it so well. It felt like I already knew the character myself. I had to like watch like clips of Wednesday Addams in the past, and like it was just like so good. It was just so good. But back to the point. That's not. I'm going off on a tangent. In general, when it came to like the romance plot line of Wednesday, the cast felt like they just felt like the same way with the love triangle. Like it was just unnecessary, and they've often said if Wednesday was gonna be paired with anyone, like, it wouldn't be say Xavier or Tyler. It would most likely be Enid. Like, although maybe I'm just being biased, I'd rather it be either Enid or Xavier because I don't know, like they would make a cute pairing. But anyway, I do think that Wednesday would have more like, I don't know, there would be like something like more with Enid. Either way, I'm pretty satisfied. But as far as the romance aspect, the showrunners plan to eliminate the romance in the next season, which leaves little hope for the Winclair ship. But the two's relationship works either way, so it wasn't really that disappointing to fans. So, like I said, the relationship works either way. You can see them as best friends or like romantic partners. Wednesday and Enid are a very interesting ship because instead of a slow burn romance, it was a slow burn friendship because the relationship did start out very like a little bit hostile, and also Wednesday being Wednesday, clashing with Enid, and the whole climax of the show, Wednesday's rock bottom wasn't Tyler being upset with her. It was Enid like being upset with her. And like Wednesday realizing that she does want friends and Enid is a good friend. And in the end, like the biggest climax wasn't really the kiss between her and like Tyler. I would say like the biggest climax was her and Enid hugging, and her and Enid finding more solace with each other and becoming more best friends. And Enid, even her saying that they work. They're not supposed to, but like they do work. And I agree. Wednesday Addams and Enid Sinclair work very well as besties. And in some fanfics, girlfriends, it works either way. No one is really disappointed. So, to end this out, ships that work either way can provide us with, like, I feel like in my opinion, it can provide us with, like, a very interesting, like, it can use us to, like, use our brains. It can sometimes be bad because it kind of, like, falls under queer baiting. It gives fans hopes up when it comes to, like, same-sex pairings. But it's also fun, you know? It's good, right? It's like good writing. You can't really pigeonhole every single thing to like one thing. I guess even characters' relationships. But in my opinion, I think it's just best to be like literal with characters' relationships so we know what to expect between the dynamic of two characters. I don't know. I guess that's what I guess that's what I've been thinking as like a viewer, like a lover of like film and media. But anyway, that's kind of all I have for today. This has kind of been like my amateur audio essay of like ships working either way. I hope that like I explained like as best as I could. I'm mostly like just giving my own thoughts and feelings about it. But anyway, that's kind of been it for this episode. So, yeah. Thank you for listening to Pisces Prince. I hope you guys like made this far if you enjoyed it so far. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Pandora, YouTube for more easier access. You can like leave a rating too. It helps me more than you think. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Pisces Prince Podcast, lowercase. You can follow me, Nick.Marshall02 on Instagram for more updates on the show or just like to see what I look like. But anyway, I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, week, month, year. And it's been like a very interesting season 2 of Pisces Prince so far. I hope you guys have been liking like the episode so far. We'll talk soon, you guys. All right. Bye.